Hi, everyone, everywhere in the United States, around the world, and beyond in our Milky Way galaxy. Since last week, we broke through 186,000 subscribers. So I am so grateful to all of you for your continuing support. Let's keep going and growing. And tonight, I'll share some of your fascinating emails and letters about your own experiences with high strangeness. But first, did you see Star Trek's and Ancient Aliens' William Shatner blast off this morning with the Blue Origin crew going 62 miles straight up? Over the course of about 10 minutes, Shatner and 3 crewmates went to the edge of black space and 3 to 4 minutes of weightlessness. And after their safe return in the Blue Origin landing pod to the desert in Van Horn, Texas, 90-year-old Shatner gave what I thought was a profound insight. He was astounded with how fast, in only seconds, the spacecraft went through Earth's razor-thin atmosphere that makes life possible on Earth. And then they were in cold, black space that goes on and on throughout this universe. Shatner compared it to seeing and feeling life to death in seconds. If every human on Earth could experience that shock, we might love and care for our beautiful blue planet, like my t-shirts, down with entropy, up with light. And then, this coming Saturday, October 16th, 2021, at 5:34 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, NASA plans to launch a new Explorer spacecraft called Lucy on a 12-year-long mission, the first ever to explore 2 different groups of asteroids known as Jovian Trojans that orbit our sun on a path in front of and behind Jupiter. The name Lucy was inspired by the 1974 discovery in Ethiopia of Homo erectus, the first standing-up primate. So Lucy, the skeleton, gave scientists insights into humanity's evolution. And that's what NASA hopes the study of the Jovian Trojan asteroids would do for better understanding of our early solar system and how it has evolved. Now, live NASA launch coverage will begin at 5 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, streaming on NASA TV on YouTube this Saturday, October 16th. And this past weekend, on Sunday, October 10th, there was a large, mysterious boom in New England. It made news everywhere. It's been headlines everywhere. And the first place that I went was WMUR-TV in Manchester. People across southern 11:30 a.m. Eastern, and that's significant to remember, Sunday morning, October 10th, 11:30 a.m. The mysterious house-shaking boom was reported over a wide area in southern New Hampshire and parts of Massachusetts and Maine. There were tweets and messages in social media from more than 40 New Hampshire towns, including Manchester, Rindge, New Boston, Hillsborough, Greenfield, Goffstown, Ware, Peterborough, Chichester, and Nashua. And one resident of New Boston, New Hampshire, reported on social media that the sound, quote, felt like someone set off a cannon nearby. It shook the walls and windows as well as the desk and chair where I was working, close quote. But what caused the ground-shaking booms? The U.S. Geological Service said no earthquake. The Federal Aviation Administration said not military jets breaking the sound barrier. Daniel and Cindy Howland from Manchester emailed me at Earthfiles the day after, on October 11th, 2021. Daniel wrote, quote, "I was in the basement and it sounded like Cindy dropped something on the floor, or she fell and dropped what she was carrying. So it was a thud followed by a slight metal-like crash noise. It lasted about 2 seconds of noise, and when I came upstairs to check on her, she thought I dropped something in the basement." Some local residents wondered if this U.S. Space Force station, officially unveiled only 3 months ago in New Boston, New Hampshire, might have information about the strange, loud, ground-shaking boom on October 10th that was reported over such a wide area. The U.S. Air Force announced the squadron, quote, "is part of a crucial network of sites operating 24 hours a day, providing critical satellite command and control capability to more than 190 Department of Defense, national and civilian satellites, performing intelligence, weather, navigation, early warning, and communication operations," close quote. So that's in New Boston, one of the places where this affected. Now, one person in Fitzwilliam who emailed WMUR-TV said they felt about 10 seconds of shaking again around 11:30 a.m. on Sunday, October 10th. And another emailer from Merrimack said they heard a huge bang and their house shook. A third person in Goffstown said the shaking caused a picture on the wall to fall down. Quote, "First thing was like a huge thump, like a very heavy person who landed on their heels on our second floor. We called up to our son on that second floor, and he replied, 'It wasn't me,'" said Richard Boshart, a resident of Ware near Goffstown, a few miles northwest of Manchester, New Hampshire, close quote. Several police departments in southwestern New Hampshire were dispatched to investigate reports of the loud boom, but nothing was found. Paul Caruso, a geophysicist at the USGS National Earthquake Center in Golden, Colorado, told WMUR-TV that they checked seismographs for the New Hampshire area from Sunday morning and said he did not see anything that looked like an earthquake. And Paul Raymond with the New Hampshire Department of Safety told WMUR-TV that the FAA Regional Operations Center had no military plane activity over the state that Sunday morning. So far, nothing has been proven, but a tweet like this from Chris Legro on October 11th suggests a possible bolide speeding through the atmosphere and crashing to the ground. Quote, "Did anyone hear a loud boom over New Hampshire yesterday?" Meaning Sunday. USGS didn't pick up an earthquake, but the geostationary lightning mapper picked up a bright flash just after 11 a.m. No lightning was in the area, so what you likely heard was a bolide or meteor that exploded on entry, close quote. But the time doesn't jibe. Just after 11 a.m. is not 11:30 a.m., and on Sunday, October 10th, all of the news headlines and the social media said the ground-shaking boom was at or around 11:30 a.m. Eastern. There's a half hour to explain in there, and no one has the final answer. Yesterday, on October 12th, another great mystery was published in the Astrophysical Journal and reported by SciTech Daily, beginning with this headline, quote, "Strange radio signals from the heart of the Milky Way tantalize scientists," close quote. This is a looped video illustration of the oscillating variable radio signal that keeps arriving at Earth from an unknown source at the center of the Milky Way galaxy, about 26,000 light years from Earth. This video is by Sebastian Zentolomo at the University of Sydney in Australia. The lead author of the research into this strange radio signal is Teng Wang, a PhD student in the School of Physics at the University of Sydney in Australia. He says, quote, "The strangest property of this new signal is that it has a very high polarization. This means its light oscillates in only one direction, but that direction rotates with time. The brightness of the object also varies dramatically by a factor of 100, and the signal switches on and off apparently at random. We have never seen anything like it," close quote. His PhD supervisor, Professor Tara Murphy in the Sydney Institute for Astronomy in the School of Physics, says, quote, "As we studied the center of our Milky Way galaxy, we found that this object was unique in that it started out invisible, became bright, then faded away, and then reappeared. This behavior is extraordinary," close quote. Adding even more to this galactic mystery is the fact that 2 years ago, after the scientists had detected 6 radio signals from the bizarre source over 9 months in 2020, the astronomers tried to find the object in visual light, but they found nothing. So what is out there? For the past 2 weeks on my September 29th and October 6th Earthfiles YouTube channel broadcasts, I have focused on the firsthand testimony of U.S. Air Force Staff Sergeant Mario Woods about his extraordinary abduction into a gigantic UFO and interaction with tall beings he thought were in charge of smaller beings during Mario's November 1977 security work at the November 1 Nuclear Missile Launch Control Facility northwest of Ellsworth Air Force Base in South Dakota. Mario also thinks that abducted with him was his missile security leader, Michael Johnson. Their missing time was between 1 a.m. and 6 a.m., which is a full 5 hours. Mario also remembered that the non-human beings placed in his mind's eye a vivid image of a huge nuclear explosion and a mushroom cloud erupting from the ground in a ball of fire. Mario's mind heard telepathically from the non-human beings, quote, "This could possibly be your future if things are not changed, or if peace does not come into this world. This could possibly be everybody's future," close quote. An email that I received from a viewer on October 1st, 2021, after Mario's Part 1 began, quote, "Another reason for UFOs after atom bombs. Could it be that the dimensional disturbances were caused by the great number of souls that transitioned at the exact same second on 2 very close dates? Not the size or nature of the explosions themselves. Have you ever heard anything like this? High regards and respect, Ann K." Early the next morning on October 2nd, she followed up with this subject line question: "Can nuclear explosions tear apart or vaporize souls?" This is from Warped Weaver to me. As I stated in my previous email, the large number of people killed in a split second of the plasma ball of a nuclear bomb might also disturb soul plans for thousands or millions of years if suddenly a large number of souls were destroyed. ETs probably know exactly the repercussions of this, since souls may incarnate in many universes, not to mention the knowledge and experiences that never reach the source. This may explain why they, the UFO aliens, weren't as aggressive preventing the thousands of tests done all over the world. However, the testing and abductions for samples of DNA would be logical if they were tracking fallout effects. An overlay of the map showing fallout distribution and density with one of your maps of animal mutilations and perhaps a MUFON map of known human abductions where tissue samples were taken might be an interesting comparison. ETs could be searching for evidence of DNA degradation, such as we already know about the Y chromosome of human men. Please let me know if anybody has considered this. Obviously, experiments to prove soul annihilation are impossible, but some religions already say if you are bad for long enough, with no sign of regret, your soul can be eliminated. Sincerely and with great respect, Ann K. Well, that afternoon of October 2nd, I emailed back, "Hi, Ann, your emails have made me think a lot. One thing does seem like 2 + 2 = 4, but I have never heard anyone discuss it before. An atomic bomb took out 80,000 people in the same instant in Hiroshima, Japan, in August 1945. You make the excellent point that it seems reasonable to conclude that the same number of souls, 80,000, would be destroyed instantly as well. And if reincarnation, the recycling of souls, is the machinery of this universe, as EBA 1 told a U.S. Air Force captain at Los Alamos Lab in 1949, then the annihilation of so many souls instantly would presumably interfere with the whole reincarnation machinery. I have much, much more to learn, and thank you for your intelligent emails from me." And then Rebecca F., dated October 8th, 2021, wrote me, "Hello, Linda. I am a lifelong experiencer. I have followed you and shared some of your research findings in various chat rooms. I am registered to share with others like myself in a MUFON secured chat room. About 8 years ago, I needed to go to my car parked in the driveway. I remember walking off the porch toward my car. My memory is that I looked up above my vehicle. 5 orbs were hovering over my car. They were approximately 3 feet away above me. I remember realizing that they were alive with a consciousness. I remember how they were shaped, as well as the translucent, but more solid center inside the translucents. My thoughts were deep into the orbs, trying to figure out exactly what I saw. I felt no fear. I will tell you, there are many dimensions, many. This is part of how and where alien entities are able to travel. The soul does leave the human body. It does travel to other dimensions. The soul returns to who and what I call Source. Please understand that I believe we all come from Source. We are like sparks that go out into the universe. When our predetermined mission task is complete, we return to Source to share our mission task. At that point in time, we then determine the next future of our being. My truth here, Linda." And now, Ian, I'm transitioning to you to see in our live chats and comments, do we have people who are waiting to react to any of these letters that we have received or have comments?
Thank you, Linda. Yes, we've got quite a lot of comments already. And first of all, let me do some super chat thanks. Thank you, Moonbird, Eric Ackley, Courtney C., Judy Graham, James Thiessen, Roger Silvos, Galaxy Wolf 416, Goldie Olvido Baroa in the Philippines, Marcio Correo, and John K. Thank you.
Wow. And congratulations, Ian, for a splendid name list. Thank you.
Thank you as well. We've got people who are calling in, obviously, from the United States and Canada. A lot of people are in from Croatia this evening.
Great. Yeah,
We've even got St. Martin in the Caribbean, and the Philippines and Hawaii are also represented this evening.
I love hearing from where everybody is listening. Thank you.
Okay, well, we've got quite a few questions here. So Do we have any reports of UFOs or other visitors near particle colliders or other such high energy experiments, Linda?
That is really an excellent question. And right off at the beginning, I cannot recall anything that specific. And that is a very good point. And I'll throw it back to you in the audience, hopefully scientists tonight. Has there been perhaps classified, top secret, not reaching media, nothing for the public, but have there been interactions with accelerators where they're making particle beam weapons, anything like that, but especially where we would be studying and crashing, like at the Stanford Linear Accelerator and others, and in Geneva, CERN. See, there could be UFO activity, and everybody is putting a hand down on any publicity. And that's the part I don't know. That is a really excellent question. So I'm going to throw the ball back over the court to anybody listening who might have insights to that, given the fact that the missile silos that would use the nuclear energy, as a nuclear weapon, that there have been interferences there since the 60s through the 80s. Would there be a difference, or are the non-humans just trying to concentrate on Earth that which will end up killing all of us, meaning if we went to nuclear war? So it may be that the interferences in all of the missile sites in those decades, and probably even up to today if we knew the truth, they may be concentrating on the signal, as Mario Woods talked about in the last two parts of understanding. They're basically saying, you cannot go this route. And the idea that we would end up obliterated if we do. And the other part that comes through abductees, if you split the atom, you do something in the atom, you are tearing into dimensions you know nothing about. So it would be very interesting to have more research from people who would work in installations having to do with bombarding atoms and protons, to see if there really is an unpublic, a non-public bank of stories that have occurred. So let's see what happens, and if we get some insights or answers, I'll report next week. But now, Ian, I'm going to go to a close encounter with a UFO in New South Wales, Australia. This came in a message from Matt J. Hi, Earthfiles. Your October 6th, 2021, that's 1 week ago, was another great broadcast. Thank you, Matt. I live in Australia, and not long ago, a craft came down over my house on the New South Wales north coast at approximately 2 a.m. our time. We heard it coming across the rainforest canopy, making a humming, metal, grinding noise as we laid in bed. And the next thing, I was looking at the bottom of this craft from approximately 5 meters away. All electricity in the house shut down except the TV, which I thought was strange. And then inside the house was lit up brighter than daylight. I was frozen as my ex-girlfriend tried pulling me off the bed. And then she tried to cover the windows, screaming, "We're being abducted." A lot of colors spun around the bottom of the craft. And as advanced as their technology appeared, it also looked to be ancient. Perhaps he means that he was seeing scratches and stains. And then, from all the chaos and communication of the weird electricity and lights and humming noises, we both found ourselves laying back in bed like we were before the craft arrived. And the implication is that there are jump cuts in his memory. He may have been abducted aboard this craft. They watched as it flew away over the rainforest canopy, and as I heard that last hum from the craft, my somewhat paralyzed body, I guess frozen with shock, began to relax and I could stand up. And then I looked at the clock. We were missing 2 hours. I thought, that's why people can't get good photos and videos up close of UFOs and ETs, because the electricity goes weird. It's also frightening beyond what I could ever have imagined. It changed my life forever. In the aftermath, there was another serious development that I can write to you about separately. Love the Earthfiles channel. Have so much respect for Linda and the Earthfiles team. Blessings from Matt in Australia. And Matt, thank you, and please follow up with a further report of what you reference in this message about communicating separately. Now, the advanced technologies of UFOs and ETs being able to shut down electrical power grids and interfere with magnetic fields goes back to 1951 in terms of communication to the public, and that classic Hollywood science film, The Day the Earth Stood Still. The film's storyline involves a humanoid alien visitor named Klotz, who comes to Earth accompanied by a powerful robot named Gort to deliver an important message that will affect the entire human race. Quote, "Your choice is simple. Join us and live in peace, or pursue your present course and face obliteration," meaning the course of war and atomic bombs. "We shall be waiting for your answer," close quote. And Klaatu and Gort get in the flying disc and leave. I find that to be so important at this particular time, Ian, when there are all these discussions about China, Russia, North Korea, the United States, having lots of nuclear weapons and sort of rattling sabers with nuclear weapons about who might launch first and what would happen. And everything that the ETs have ever communicated to abductees, and then what is depicted in this film, is if you choose that course, you face obliteration. Obliteration means complete annihilation and gone. And in that context, we know that it's not clear about who are our allies, who's neutral, and who is hostile. But it seems to me that over and over again, whether it's an abductee or The Day the Earth Stood Still, they are depicting that there are beings, very advanced, who care about what happens on Earth and has some vested interest in what happens to Homo sapiens sapien. And in that context, maybe some of you in the Earthfiles YouTube channel audience have communicated or will communicate around this question of, does anybody feel that they really know about an ally that is non-human, that is actually trying to help us avoid obliteration? And in that context, Ian, what other comments, messages do you have from tonight?
Well, we've got Lily Boot from the UK says, can alien beings disguise themselves as shadow people or dead relatives? But let me just say, she's had some of her own experiences with shadow people when she was younger. And she's also noted there was a staticky type feeling in the air during these experiences. And she's also felt herself levitating. Several people have mentioned about the levitations, etc. And even you and I, before we went on air, discussed, someone in the comments talked about the levitation experiences.
The thing that jumps out from what you have just shared is the shadow people. The very first person who drew for me an experience that I know was so real in the context of her entire life, from teenage, probably 3 or 4, but her real experiences began when she was a teenager and are described in my 2-volume book, Glimpses of Other Realities. Volume 1 has the taxonomy that goes on for about 36 pages of different illustrations done by a variety of people going back from the 50s up to when that book was first released in '93. And you see her illustration, the California, Linda Porter. And it was one of her earlier childhood memories. And she is waked, and simultaneously she sees a small disc in her room near her, kind of near the bed. And then in the middle of the room, a beam of light makes an oval, and she watches as she called them shadow people. They are formed in a shape that is humanoid, head, appendage arms, appendage legs, and a torso, but they're shadow. That means there's no features. And sees 2 of them come out of this light that seems to be connected to a beam. And then, so there's a little UFO, there are the shadow people, and then it's not clear to her, but she knows that a gray being with large gray eyes, not much more than 4 feet tall, is standing up close to her. And that is what she drew in the illustration that is in my Glimpses of Other Realities, those 2 books. And the abductee in her case, it's what are the shadow people? Are they some kind of a non-material, simply energy form that can be projected by extremely advanced technologies? That the source of the shadow people could be, maybe they parked themselves out at Mars and they are still surveying the Earth, and they do it with, in a sense, sort of shadow avatars that could come from some other base, and the progenitors, the principal source, doesn't have to go to Earth or any place, but can send in a kind of an advanced artificial intelligence that can move around the universe in light, use this technology that can penetrate into a room. And then it reminds me of what Adam Burns talked to us about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I'd like to talk with him more about this. And that is when he said that he had huge bruises on his body, and he was mystified, very upset actually, about why. And eventually he would get an explanation that was, in a sense, it's like, which came first, Star Trek or the reality of what ETs do? And that was, he said, I got the clear understanding that when they put me in that beam to take me to another planet or wherever I go into a UFO, that they are deconstructing me at the atomic level into the beam. Then they are reconstructing my human organic body at wherever they end up, which doesn't have to be on Earth or the moon. It can be far, far out. And if that is the kind of technology that exists in advanced species in various places in this universe, it might also explain that the writers of Star Trek were given a tremendous amount of knowledge that our government already had learned between World War II and when Star Trek came out, and that doing the beam, that things could go down in the beam and come up in the beam, that may have been a share, make sure that you are demonstrating that the body can be deconstructed, go into a beam, and then be reconstructed, because they know that that is one of the technologies of advanced non-humans that come and go in our solar system and here. If that is true, then the idea, as Linda Porter did this lovely sketch, very, very clear. The shadow people coming from a point source that expanded into a dark oval, seemingly related to a beam, could have been that she was allowed to, or she became conscious of, that it was in her room in time to see it, and maybe most people do not see that. It's hard to know for sure, but I think the bottom line is that the technologies that move advanced intelligences like the Alcubierre warp drive around the universe, moving time, moving space, pulling space, not Euclidean, trying to get there, light years, that they can move point to point and that they have the ability through an energy system that makes beams, and those beams can be of various frequencies, and a beam can go down into a field and bring up plants. It can go down into water, bring up marine life. It can go into mountains, bring up mountain life, and it can penetrate into a house where Homo sapiens sapien is living on Earth and beam people up. So that is one huge area that is fascinating. And if there are people listening tonight who have firsthand scientific knowledge about the existence of this beam technology and deconstructing down at the molecular and atomic level, I'd love to meet you and talk with you, or at least communicate. So, Ian, I'm going to go now into some of our water apocalypse dreams. I have hundreds and hundreds of these letters over the last 3 years. And what I've chosen tonight to do is to try to stay current. So I'm starting with an October 6th, 2021, from Annie G. Quote, I had a dream when I lived in San Francisco 10 years ago that the city was being totally covered by massive waves. Close quote. J. Doyle, October 10th, 2021, quote, I've been wanting to email you since the first time I heard you speak about the water or flooding dreams. For the last at least 10 years, I've been having the same 2 dreams on and off. These dreams always seem to be the same, but in different places and with different people. Sometimes my family is there with me, or sometimes strangers are who I am surrounded by. The strangers don't feel like strangers in the dreams, but when I am awake, I cannot place what they look like or who they are. The first dream is about a tsunami. Somehow I am always by an ocean location, either with my family or with strangers. It happens so suddenly. We somehow know it's about to happen, but we weren't told it would until it was too late. Everyone else is running around trying to get away, but it doesn't matter because the dream always ends the same for me. The water is coming, like I can picture it now. There's people everywhere running around trying to get away. Then there's me and a few others. We're just standing there looking at the water rising high as the sky. And then it hits. And I'm standing there watching as the water covers us all. People and things are everywhere. I remember being under the water even in one of the dreams and trying to swim to the top for air. I always wake up before I get to know if I or anyone survives. Sometimes I am above looking down at the disaster, not my body, just me seeing it. And I think that that means out of body. And I'm watching it all unfold. Second dream is the same thing, except this is not about a tsunami. It's war. With who or what, I'm not sure. All I know is it's in America, and our army, soldiers, and police are around us outside taking over the streets. Tanks everywhere. Bullets riddle who knows what in the background. And I can even hear bombs in the distance. Fire consumes buildings or houses all around us. Again, people are everywhere trying to run or hide. And then there's me and whoever I am with. We don't try to run. We just can't. There is nowhere to go. And then I wake up. And I think it would be fair to say that the implication of this dream would be actual armed civil war in the United States that some people are beginning to worry about a lot. And now, Adam A., October 8th, 2021. I was taken by the Nordic being with the white long hair and the big collar and the medallion around his neck with the 5 prongs. I was shown a baby with blue eyes, and the baby was mine, I was told. And the mother was there too. She wore a pleated skirt with pink flowers on it. I would like to find the girl in the pleated skirt. She looks younger than me. I was 25 at the time, maybe 26. The Nordic being showed me a clone of my body in a glass tube that had a light at the top of it, and there were tubes on the side of it. They told me that in the future I would drown in water, and they said after that they would put me in the new body, and I would be reunited with my real family. A creature that looked like Sasquatch or Chewbacca from Star Wars was also there, looking on as I was shown the baby. There was also a large black dog there. The Sasquatch creature and the dog were calm. Everyone was calm. The baby seemed wise, and he looked at me and I felt connected to him. He had dark hair like me. He was in some sort of a bed that looked like an open crib. I don't know how old the baby was, but he wasn't a newborn. He had hair. I could guess he was maybe 2 or 3 years old, maybe closer to 2. The Nordic showed me a moving image on a large screen. Or it was possibly an image that was projected into my mind of a large tidal wave coming toward a tall building that I was standing in. I remember thinking, here comes this big wave and I can't get away from it. I hope we get flying cars sometime soon. I must take it with a grain of salt. Does this mean this event will actually happen? I find it difficult to believe that. I have to live my life as though I have unlimited time left. And I thought when I read that, don't we all feel that way? Now, Jay Cutliff, October 2, 2021. The Colorado deep storage and bunker and military federal facility that's built into a mountain, and that sounds like Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado, is something that in my dreams flashes at me and has been for many years. I see flooding and I see it happening instantly. I see it not too far off in the future. I have always known that they, alien intelligence, will not come until we are in a post-apocalyptic event. I believe that's why they have been coming more and more. They are collecting everything needed to repopulate this planet with ecosystems, close quote. And Ian, I'm sharing these tonight not to add anything to the scales that seem on some days now to be weighted toward negative and scary and depressing and all of the problems exacerbated by the terrible COVID. I'm sharing them because they aren't singular. I have picked out letters to have an evolution, but I have files with so many letters. And there is this theme, a theme that appears to involve some kind of an intelligence that has some kind of vested interest in this planet, with or without vested interest in Homo sapiens sapien. And that there is a crunch time coming in this decade, something that seems to have been on a timeline for a very, very, very ancient perspective. And that we humans, we only have each other to share what has honestly happened with each of us, whether it has been with extraterrestrial biological entities or with a beam that came into a room and maybe you saw a relative after they passed over, or all and any of the high strangeness. We have each other, if we can be honest, because we're on a planet that for thousands and thousands of years, policies of secrecy, policies of denial, policies of lies have always existed around the subjects that we are just sampling tonight from our fellow human beings who have written. And I say to all of you, fear is never going to get us anywhere. Change it to curiosity. Curiosity about everything from what kind of a universe are we in to exactly what would be the true intent of a variety of these beings that clearly have been carved in stone, put in oil paintings, a variety of them through many centuries on this planet. So we're not the first Homo sapiens sapien to encounter. The difference is we have grown technologically. We are perhaps now even in competition with resources and other territorial aspects of this solar system with other beings. And some of those beings may want to see us evolve, grow, get stronger, and stand on our own 2 feet. To get there, I don't know of any other way except the whole truth. The humans would finally be given the respect to be told the whole truth of everything. Because our alleged power brokers and government leaders allegedly know the whole truth, they're still there. They continue to function. So it would be my hope to hear back from you about whether you think sharing, like we did tonight, pulling from subjects and sort of doing a weaving, does this help you understand some things, and then does it encourage you to feel like that yes, you can write an email or a message or a handwritten letter about your own experiences. And as you can hear tonight, I usually just use a first letter or a last letter and not a whole name and not locations. And so in a strange way, we're becoming like a chorus. It isn't that one person bears the responsibility of the communication. There's a whole group of us that keeps expanding. And I would love to know, Ian, if right now, if I ask through you, is this a good way to communicate periodically with all of you? I would like to know what your reactions are.
Yes, let's hear from the audience in the live chat. If you think it's a good format, let us know. Many people are sharing their experiences and seem to be in agreement. So we'll see what they say. Can I just give you a response? We had a question from Moonbird about the sightings of UFOs over scientific facilities.
Yes.
Well, we've had Kevin S. has responded. He says, we are making antimatter at Princeton. The physicists I know are telling me there are unexplained time delays, and also they are having mental experiences of telepathy.
Mental experiences of telepathy. Any idea of the content? If not now, can you please let me know what the content is in the telepathy of the scientists?
That's all I have, but I hope that we'll get more from Kevin S. So
it doesn't surprise me at all. I have always wondered if scientists that are working in parallel, in conjunction sometimes on projects, I know somebody who is, in which ETs are definitely involved. And they mention, it's not what your reference is, this is a completely different one. They reference telepathic thoughts, seeing clarity on something that they're trying to build, and that might be an indication that there are other intelligences who are way advanced from where we are and realize we are struggling extremely hard to keep the Earth going, and that maybe that would be a safe way to help us. And that would be telepathic thought with designs and equations and things like that. So I would love to know what the content is, Ian. Go ahead.
Yeah, and Linda, I'm looking at a list of yeses. People do like the format. They think it's a great format. They love hearing the letters. They love the open chats, and they think it's a great periodic thing to do.
Good. I feel that too. And we'll try to do it. I don't know on what schedule, but we will definitely do this because I sure have some wonderfully valuable letters. Now, is there another comment and question on the live side of our chat?
Yes. Well, there's a great comment here. I find it interesting how UFOs have been seen near nuclear weapons launch sites around the world. It causes me to ask, have they kept us safe all these decades?
That is excellent, because that is one of the pieces that has come in kind of an evolution from the first time that I ever heard from my brother about what had happened at Malmstrom. And there was a discussion during that period of time when Larry Fawcett was working on the book Clear Intent, and he asked me to contribute what happened with my brother in a helicopter taking a general out, where the sabotage alert team was saying that this huge football field-sized orange fluorescent UFO had settled down right over Kilo 7, the missile site. And then jets were scrambled and all of the military were coming. And all of the discussions of the groups of us at that time raised that question. What if the irony is that the intrusions and all of the military bases are the non-humans trying to keep humans alive and trying to preserve the Earth that is a laboratory for everyone? If there had not been intrusions, because if there were intrusions in the United States, you have to assume there were intrusions in Russia, then it could be that if we knew the whole real truth, that the advanced intelligences in these tremendously advanced technologies that can move through walls, move time, change time, travel past to future, all over the place, all of it, that they were trying to save us from ourselves using those weapons. Please keep helping us. What else, Ian?
Linda, what is I'm combining two questions here. What is your own opinion on the booms and strange sounds, and has your opinion changed over time?
In 2011, when I started getting my first series of the boom reports and how puzzling they all were, I will say, I had a gut feeling it had something to do with UFOs and ETs. just a gut feeling. And as we've now gone an entire decade, and the New Hampshire case, that was wide-ranging. That was a lot of energy. That shook lots of houses, that affected a lot of people calling authorities. This was a big event, like happened in Georgia and England. There's so many places like this over the last 11 years. And nobody can find anything. Well, I got a very interesting email that it was it's speculation as far as I know, unless they're pretending that they don't work someplace and they're just sending a message. But the idea was that we know that the non-humans can move point to point, and that there might be a residual of compression waves from something that moves at 12,000 miles an hour or 20,000 miles an hour, invisible. It's invisible, but the impact on our environment might be these booms and the strange sounds. But then you jump over to the other side of that and say there have been so many reports. They've been repeating every year. There have been some of these huge scale covering tremendous amounts. One that I really remember, Georgia. It was about 6 years ago. I remember it was close to noon. People were leaving offices. A police officer had gotten in his police car to go home. This huge boom is heard over 5 counties in Georgia at the same second. 9/11, police, fire, they all start getting phone calls. And this police officer drove his car to go into his garage to have lunch, heard the boom, saw his garage door rattle out of its tracks, came out of the tracks. Later the newspapers would report this, and the cement holding the track cracked. And he's watching. He's there in his police car. That's how we know about it. 5 counties. Well, what kind of energy system does that? And the other part is people have said felt like a compression wave from above. Others say, no, the bottoms of my feet were hit. The slap from below. It's always been, well, why is some people above, below? The weirdest, over and over and over again, every year there has been a case of this since 2011. I've interviewed several families. They're talking about how everybody in the house is scared because the sound was so loud, the house shook, and then they go out of their house and they don't see anything. They're expecting to see a bomb, of something on fire. And in this one particular case, across the street, I think there were 5 houses on the block. And here is the house that I'm doing the interview. And I asked them, I said, when we hang up, would you please make a canvas of the neighbors? They were at this end, so they were the houses going this way, and then there were the houses across the street. And they said that they did. And they said not a single other person or family in those other houses on that street heard anything. Well, you would say, well, that makes no sense, therefore there's something wrong with the story. But then jump over to the facts, over and over and over again, reported since 2011. People I probably, if I were estimating how many people I have talked to have this detail, would be at least 20 or 30 families where they have found something dramatic happens at their house and right across the street, nothing. So there has been a specific focus that is puzzling. Why would there be a compression wave, if that's what it is, from above or from below, or in a few instances, both at the same property at the same time? Why would it be affecting only one specific point? That is a mystery. And that is one of the facts of dealing with this phenomenon. So, Fluffy is jumping around in my bookcase now. That, Ian, is the landscape in which you have to look at the booms, the trumpets, and the metallic sounds. They've all been described one way or the other as sometimes completely that focused. It's very puzzling. Ian.
Linda, what's the best way to bring up high strangeness in everyday conversation?
I guess to say to another human being, you know, I had the strangest thing happen yesterday. I saw this beam, it looked sort of gold, came down through a tree. I thought, well, it can't be the sun doesn't do that. Where is this light coming from? And then I saw the beam moving around a plant, and then I saw the plant leaving the garden and going up in the beam of light. Things like that have really happened. And I think we've lived in decades where nobody would say those words to another human being because they would say they'll think I'm crazy. We are in a completely different time, and I think that all people have to do is describe something that has happened. And other humans are resonating with the fact that the planet is so much different, the universe is so much different than we have ever been taught. And to that end, I want to remind all of you that Robert Salas is holding a press conference. He was the Air Force captain who was at Malmstrom and was down in a missile, it was the Oscar missile site, going back to 1967, where they had 10 nuclear missiles go off, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Boeing said it was impossible. Well, Bob has felt that what has happened between UFOs and missile sites is the strongest evidence of interaction of advanced intelligences from someplace else in the universe here on Earth. And to remind you guys that he's holding a press conference at the National Press Club in the combined MWL rooms in Washington, D.C. on October 19th. It will begin at 8:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern. He's going to present declassified U.S. government documents and testimonies from 4 retired U.S. Air Force personnel who will present, quote, evidence of ongoing now even, incursions by unidentified aerial objects at nuclear missile sites from the 1960s to the 1980s. Repeatedly underground Minuteman nuclear missiles, quote, were inexplicably disabled while a UAP-UFO object silently hovered nearby, close quote. The press conference event is open to specified guests, credentialed media, and congressional staff only. And those that will be joining Bob are Robert Jameson, former United States Air Force captain and nuclear missile targeting officer, David Schindel, former U.S. Air Force captain and nuclear missile crew commander, Robert Jacobs, former U.S. Air Force lieutenant and missile test photographic officer, and Robert Salas, U.S. Air Force captain retired and co-author of a very important book, Faded Giant, first released in 2005, with researcher James Klotz, about the March 1967 Minuteman nuclear missiles that powered down one by one every second for 10 seconds twice on March 16th, and then a week later, approximately on March 24th, 1967, at Echo and Oscar Flight Launch Control Centers, 15 miles north of Lewistown, Montana, associated with the Malmstrom Air Force Base. Bob's goal, this is his second effort at the National Press Club, to bring people who were firsthand witnesses involved in missile sites, to have them have a press conference and then try to see if they can get congressional public hearings on the UFO interactions at Minuteman missile sites in the 1960s to the 1980s in the United States. And one of the complementary or associated phenomena that were occurring at that time, along with the intrusions in the missile sites, were animal mutilations. And I'm happy, this was my 1980 documentary, A Strange Harvest, and then I did this in 1993, called it Strange Harvest 1993. It was a huge breakout of animal mutilations, especially down in the southeastern United States and across the pond to Norway and the northern European. Why? Nobody ever knows. But I have now got them in beautiful sleeves, and these two films are where it all began for me. And nothing has changed. Everything is current and present. Animal mutilations have been a part of the phenomena interacting with our planet since at least the 1960s. And if a journal that the BBC found, and I talked with a BBC producer about when I was working on A Strange Harvest, they found a journal that was referencing the bloodless, trackless mutilation of sheep with their white hair on a billabong, which is a deserty place in Australia, with no blood on the white hair and no tracks around the bodies of the animals on the dust. And every one of those sheep had an ear, eye, tongue, jaw, genitals, and rectum excised. And that went back to the beginning of the 20th century. So there are multiple facets. And the thing that I'm hoping could take hold of our planet would be the introduction to true allies who care about what happens to Earth. And associated with that is the care about what happens to us. And that we could move to an age of finally being educated about other life in our universe and the various life forms that cohabit our Earth with us as if they are in a hotel, and they have for millions of years. How wonderful if we could reach a point where everything could be presented in the light of day, telling the truth, and we could understand the good, the bad, the ugly, but that in the end, we're in a universe that is conscious of our consciousness, and if we could be told the truth, we would get stronger, we would be able to stand our own ground with other intelligences. And that might be what saves all of us in the end. I love you guys. I'll see you next Wednesday.
Turn on closed captions for YouTube videos by clicking the white CC button on the lower right. The default language for Linda's videos is English. If you would like to see the captions in another language, click on the white Settings button next to the CC button. Select Subtitles CC, and then select Auto Translate. Select a language, and the captions will now appear in that language.
Sort of gone through, and they will hold their heads. I never had a cat do that before. And they'll pull against the comb, helping me get out snarls. And I think it's the best they've ever been.